The night I realized that baby didn't belong to my son, the whole world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. That line still sits heavy on my chest, like the weight of a wet blanket nobody asked for. I remember standing there in my own living room on the southwest side of Atlanta. Lights dimmed low, the quiet hum of the old ceiling fan pushing warm air around, holding that tiny baby girl against my chest. She smelled like powder and warm milk. Her little breaths puffed soft and shallow against my neck, and for a moment, I thought heaven had loaned me an angel. But that moment didn't last long, because before the clock struck 9, I would hear something that made my heart stutter, something that made me question everything I thought I knew about my family. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back a little. Because stories like this one, stories soaked in quiet betrayal and painful truth, they don't start with the earthquake. They start with the soft rumble under the ground, the kind you ignore until cracks start showing at your feet. My name is Loretta, 58 years old, retired school secretary, born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, with my life stitched between old church pews and long summers on my grandmother's porch. I've lived in the same neighborhood for 32 years, a cozy pocket of older homes and slow traffic, lined with pecan trees that drop enough nuts in the fall to keep the squirrels gossiping. My son, Marcus, is 32.
Good man.
Gentle.
Steady.
The kind of man who still hugs me every time he leaves the house, even if he's just running down to the corner store. When he brought home his girlfriend, later his wife, Tiana, I tried to keep my heart open. She was beautiful, sharp, and carried herself with that confident grace women half her age envy. But there was something else too, an edge. Like her smile was practiced. Like her words had been ironed flat before she spoke them. Still, she had a sweetness in her voice whenever she said, "Mama Loretta," and I chose to believe in that sweetness. You see, when you get older, you learn to pick your battles. And when someone makes your child happy, you thank God, smile through your doubts, and hope time proves you right. For a while, I thought it would. Marcus and Tiana had only been married a year when she got pregnant. I remember how my son lifted her hand in church that Sunday, showing off her new ring, the both of them glowing under the choir's slow hum. The whole congregation clapped like heaven had personally approved their union. And when Tiana got pregnant, oh, Marcus couldn't stop smiling. Everywhere he went, he carried that ultrasound picture like a badge of honor. "Ma, look at her nose," he'd say. "She already got my nose." And I'd nod, even though all ultrasounds looked like little shadows to me. Still, I could feel something shifting. Something small. Something quiet.
Tiana changed.
Not at once, but little by little. She grew distant, irritated, quick-tempered. And any time Marcus walked into a room, she'd either go silent or pick a fight. One evening, I pulled her aside. "Tiana, baby, you alright? Pregnancy can stretch a woman thin, body and mind." She looked at me with eyes that glistened like glass, pretty, hard, unbreakable. "I'm fine, Mama Loretta," she said softly. "Just tired." But something about the way she avoided my eyes told me it wasn't just tiredness. The night she asked me to babysit, the air felt thick. Atlanta summers will do that, wrap around you like warm syrup, but this was different.
It was a Sunday.
Church had just let out, and my house still smelled like the baked chicken I left warming in the oven. I was in my kitchen fixing myself a plate when my phone buzzed. It was Tiana. "Mama Loretta, can you watch the baby for a few hours?"
Her tone was too even.
Too controlled, like she was reading from a script.
"Of course," I said.
"Everything all right?" "Yes," she answered quickly. "I just have somewhere to be."
Somewhere to be.
I didn't question it. I should have, but at the time I didn't. I was just happy she trusted me with that sweet little newborn. When she showed up 20 minutes later, she didn't step inside. She just handed me the baby carrier. Her hair was pinned in a neat bun, makeup fresh, outfit pressed tight like she was heading somewhere important. "Thank you," she said, kissing the baby's forehead. "I'll be back tonight." Then she left.
Just like that.
The baby, little Avery, was quiet that night. Too quiet. She curled her tiny fingers around mine as I rocked her in the living room. Outside, cicadas buzzed loud and steady, the way they do every Georgia summer. Inside, everything was soft, still, peaceful. Around 8:30, Avery began fussing. I carried her upstairs to warm a bottle. When I came back down, I heard something I wasn't meant to hear. My front door wasn't fully shut. And on the porch,
Tiana.
talking on the phone. Her back was turned, her voice low but sharp enough to slice through the night air. "No, I told you," she hissed. "He thinks the baby is his. And as long as you keep your mouth shut, everything will stay how it's supposed to be." I froze mid-step. My ears rang. My breath caught. The baby whimpered softly. And still, Tiana kept talking. "He's not leaving his wife," she whispered fiercely. "And I told you, I'm not giving up my marriage for you. I did what I had to do." My heart slammed so hard, I felt the pulsing in my fingertips. I stepped closer, quietly, slowly, just enough to hear the rest. "Look," she said, voice breaking for the first time, "I needed stability. Marcus is good to me. He's safe. That's why I'm staying.
So leave me alone.
And don't ever call this number again." She hung up. For a full moment, she stood there breathing hard. And I stood behind the half-open door, holding her baby, my son's baby, or what I thought was my son's baby, feeling like the ground below me had cracked clean open. I didn't move. Couldn't move. Not until the truth settled in my bones like cold water. Avery wasn't Marcus's child. And Tiana knew. And somebody else out there knew too. My fingers trembled as I held onto Avery. My heart felt like it was trapped in a vice. I knew I had a choice to make, right there on that landing between shock and action. Do I walk out onto that porch and confront her? Or do I swallow the truth, protect my son, and wait for a better time? I did neither, because Tiana turned around and saw me. Her eyes widened, and everything stopped. Tiana froze like her soul had been yanked out of her body. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The cicadas outside screamed into the silence like they knew a storm was coming. Avery shifted in my arms, making a soft, sleepy sound, almost a sigh, like even she felt the tension in the air. Tiana's eyes flicked from my face, to the baby, back to me. Her lips parted just slightly, her breath catching the way a child does when they've been caught with their hand in the cookie jar. But this wasn't cookies. This was a marriage. My son's marriage. And a lie big enough to swallow a whole family. "Ma," she started, her voice thin as thread. I opened the door the rest of the way and stepped onto the porch, slow, steady, deliberate. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I didn't reach for drama. That's never been my way. I simply looked at her the same way my own mother once looked at me when she discovered I had broken her favorite vase. Quiet. Plain. Knowing. "Tiana," I said softly, "come inside." Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. "It's not what you think you heard. Come inside," I repeated. She hesitated, then stepped past me, shoulders trembling just enough to betray the fear she was hiding. I closed the door behind us. Inside, the house felt different. The warm lamplight, the soft hum of the fan, the smell of baby formula. All the things that felt homey minutes earlier suddenly felt like props in a play I didn't know I'd been acting in. Tiana stood near the edge of the living room, hands wrapped around her forearms like she was holding herself together. I rocked Avery gently, letting the silence press on Tiana until she finally broke. "Please," she whispered. "Don't say anything yet." My voice came out level but not cold. "Sit down, Tiana." She lowered herself onto the edge of the sofa, eyes glossy, but not from tears, fear.
Guilt.
Maybe both. I sat across from her, Avery soft and warm on my shoulder. "All I'm going to ask you is one question," I said. "And you need to give me the truth. Not the polished version. Not the version you think will get you out of this. The truth." She nodded slowly. I leaned forward. "Is this child my son's?" Silence. Not the kind that leaves room for hope. No, this was the kind that settles like dust after a building collapses. Tiana pressed her lips together, her eyes drifting toward the baby, then to the floor. She covered her face with her hands for a moment, shaking her head, small, helpless. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked open. No, she's not. A sound came out of me I didn't recognize, soft, breathy, wounded. Not quite a gasp, not quite a moan. Just the sound of something inside me bending. Tiana lifted her head, eyes shining now for real. But I love Marcus. I love him, Mama Loretta. What does that even mean? I said quietly. When you've lied to him about the one thing a man should never have to doubt. It wasn't supposed to happen, she said in a rush. It was a mistake. One mistake. I broke it off. I did. But then I found out I was pregnant and Marcus, he was so happy. I couldn't ruin that for him. I couldn't. I closed my eyes, letting her words wash over me like cold rain. Marcus. My sweet, steady boy. The kind who grew into his heart faster than he grew into his body. The boy who cried at his cousin's funeral because nobody should have to go that young. The boy who still checked on his friends when they were down, even when they didn't deserve it. He would give this woman the shirt off his back. He would give this baby the world. And she knew it. That was what hurt. Not the cheating. People make mistakes. Not even the baby. Children are innocent. It was the choice. The deception. The decision to sit in a lie and let love pay the price. Tiana, I said, voice tight, you have put my son in a cage he doesn't even know he's in. She shook her head, tears slipping. I wasn't trying to trap him. But you did, I said. And now I have to figure out what to do with the truth you gave me. Panic flooded her face. Please, Mama Loretta, don't tell him. Not yet.
Not now. Give me time.
I just need a little time to what? I asked sharply, more sharply than I intended. To get ahead of the truth? To build a better lie? To make him love you deeper, so the betrayal cuts harder. She flinched. Avery whimpered against my neck, and I softened my tone for the baby's sake. Tiana, I said, what you're asking, you know it's wrong. I'm not ready to lose him, she whispered. He's the only steady thing I've ever had. You don't understand. I didn't grow up with people who stayed. I don't want to go back to having nothing. I studied her carefully then. For the first time, I didn't see the polished young wife with the perfect hair and the carefully painted smile. I saw a scared girl, desperate for stability, afraid of being alone, clinging to a life she didn't build honestly. But still wrong, still harmful, still dangerous to my son. Tiana, I said softly, Marcus deserves the truth. She shook her head violently. If you tell him, he'll leave me.
He'll divorce me.
He'll take everything I have. He'll take his dignity, I corrected. And that belongs to him. She covered her face again, sobbing quietly now. Not loud hysterics. Small, broken sobs. The kind that slip through fingers. The kind that sound like regret, not manipulation. Still, I couldn't trust what was real and what was strategy. When she finally caught her breath, she whispered,
Please.
Let me tell him myself. Just give me time. I shifted Avery in my arms, rubbing her tiny back. How much time? A week, she said quickly. Just 1 week. A week. 7 days. 7 days of carrying the heaviest secret of my life. 7 days of looking into my son's hopeful face. 7 days of pretending. I took a slow breath. All right, I said softly. I'll give you 1 week. But if you don't tell him by then, I will. She nodded, relief flushing her face. But I wasn't relieved. I was terrified. Because secrets like this, they don't sit still. They rot. They infect. They spread. And that week would change everything. Tiana left not long after that. Eyes red, steps unsteady. I watched her walk down my driveway toward her car, her silhouette small beneath the streetlight. When she pulled away, I held Avery close. She was light.
Soft.
A warm little bundle of innocence. Her tiny hand rested against my collarbone like she trusted me with her whole world. And maybe she did. Maybe she knew something none of us knew yet. Because as I rocked her gently, whispering, Hush now, baby, a strange heaviness settled in my soul. A heaviness that told me this was only the beginning. There were more truths hiding in the shadows, more lies waiting to be uncovered. And the first clue, the first tiny crack, had only just appeared.
I didn't sleep that night.
I laid in my bed staring at the ceiling, the whir of my old fan clicking in that soft, tired rhythm it always had. But nothing about me felt steady or familiar. My thoughts paced my mind like restless feet on hardwood, back and forth, until the sun crept up like a timid visitor, sliding through the blinds and washing my room in pale light. Marcus texted me early that morning. "Ma, thanks for watching, Avery." Tiana said everything went smooth. I stared at the message longer than any message deserved.
Smooth.
Nothing about last night was smooth, but I typed back, "Yes, baby. Everything's fine." Lying had never sat right with me. It dried my mouth, pricked at my conscience. But I told myself it was temporary. 7 days. 7 days to let Tiana do the right thing. But as Monday passed, then Tuesday, something in my spirit felt off. The week stretched ahead like a road I didn't want to walk, but had no choice but to follow. And then Wednesday came. That was the day the universe nudged me again. This time harder. It started small. Marcus stopped by after work to pick up a container of gumbo I'd made. He walked in with that same easy smile he'd worn since childhood. The one that always softened me. "Ma lord, the house smell good," he said as he came into my kitchen, inhaling deep like a man savoring peace. I smiled and handed him the container. "Make sure you share it with your wife." "Oh, she'll be happy. She been craving your cooking." Something flickered in his eyes when he said, "Your wife." A shadow, quick and faint, but there. "You okay?" I asked. He shrugged lightly. "Yeah, just been some tension at home lately. Nothing big." My heart constricted. What kind of tension? He rubbed the back of his neck, his old nervous habit. "She seems distracted. Something's off. I don't know if it's postpartum, or she's just overwhelmed." I breathed quietly through my nose. Here it was. The price of secrets. Fragile, splitting open. Marcus leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Sometimes I'll walk in, and she'll be crying for no reason. Or she'll look at me like she's guilty about something, but when I ask, she shuts down. My throat tightened. Guilt has a smell, a look, a weight. And he was feeling it. I kept my voice steady. "You two talking?" "I'm trying," he said. "But it feels like she's carrying something heavy, and I can't get close enough to help." He laughed a little, sadly. I'm probably overthinking. But he wasn't. Lord knows he wasn't. A heavy ache pressed behind my ribs as I studied him. My son, my boy, my heart walking around in a grown man's body. I wanted to spill everything.
Tell him right then.
End the bleeding before it soaked too deep. But I'd given Tiana her week. And besides, he added softly, the baby keeps me going. She looks so much like me it's crazy. The ache inside me twisted. He believed it. Completely. Without question. I smiled weakly. She's beautiful. You're doing a good job, Marcus. He grinned. That warm, boyish grin. We're trying, Ma. We want to get this parenting thing right. He hugged me before he left, pressing his cheek against mine like he still did when he was 10. And when the door closed behind him, tears slipped down my face. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, steady, inevitable. On Thursday evening, the second hit came. I was sitting on my porch trimming dead leaves off my potted snake plants, the warm Atlanta air thick and humming with life. Kids played down the street, the rhythmic thump of a basketball bouncing against pavement. Then a sleek black car pulled up in front of my house. I didn't recognize it, but I recognized the man who stepped out.
Tall.
Clean haircut. Well-dressed. Late 20s. Eyes sharp as cut glass. He walked toward my house like he had practiced the steps. I stood slowly, wiping my hands on my apron as he approached. "Evening," I said cautiously. He swallowed. "Are you Mrs. Loretta Banks?" "Who's asking?" He hesitated, jaw tightening. Then he looked straight into my eyes. "My name is Jordan."
He paused.
"I'm Avery's father." A cold wind sliced through my chest, even though the air was warm as bathwater. I didn't blink, didn't move. I simply let the shock settle like sand in water. "How do you know me?" I asked quietly.
I didn't, he said.
"Not until I went through Tiana's phone months ago.
She had your number saved.
I kept it in case." He swallowed hard. "In case I ever needed it." I stared at him, my mind trying to stitch the world back together. "Why are you here, Jordan?" He took a breath so deep his shoulders rose. "I want to see my daughter." My nostrils flared. "That's not something you just show up and request." "I know," he said quickly. "But Tiana has cut me off completely. She told me she was keeping the baby, but she didn't want me involved. Then she blocked me. Changed her number. I tried reaching out different ways, nothing." He stopped, voice thinning. "I'm not here to cause drama. I just want to know she's okay." I studied him the same way I studied my students back when I worked at the school, the ones who lied for selfish reasons, and the ones who lied because they didn't have another option. There was pain in this young man. Not manipulation. Not greed.
Pain.
Raw, earnest, scared. "Does Marcus know?" he asked suddenly. My silence gave him his answer. Jordan exhaled a long, defeated breath. "He's a good man. I've seen pictures. Videos. He takes care of her. He loves that baby." His voice tightened. "He shouldn't have to do that without knowing the truth." I didn't respond.
Couldn't.
Because the truth was a heavy bowl I was already struggling to carry. Jordan shifted. "I'm not trying to break up their marriage. I know I messed up. I know what we did was wrong."
His voice cracked just barely.
"But that little girl, she's mine. And nobody can convince my heart otherwise." My eyes softened despite myself. "What do you want from me?" I asked. He lowered his gaze. "Just updates. A picture. Something to let me know she's being cared for." He lifted his head again. "And when the time comes, when the truth comes out, please don't let them erase me from her life." I inhaled slowly. Deeply. Painfully. This was bigger than I'd known. More tangled. More layered. More human. I saw a father suffering. A wife unraveling. A husband oblivious. And a baby caught at the center. "Jordan," I said gently, "leave me your number." He handed me a slip of paper he'd folded neatly into squares. Then he turned to go. Just before he reached his car, he looked back. "You're a good woman," he said softly. "I can see that." But his eyes told me something else. Something I felt in my bones. He wasn't going to stay silent forever. And whether I wanted it or not, a reckoning was coming. I stood on that porch long after Jordan's car disappeared down the block. The cicadas had quieted, like even they sensed the heaviness lingering in the air. I pressed that folded slip of paper between my fingers. Jordan's number. Feeling the ridges of the creases, the weight of a truth I had never asked to carry. My hands shook. Not from fear. From the sheer magnitude of what this secret had become. 3 lives, Marcus, Tiana, Jordan, pivoting around one small baby girl who had no idea the world beneath her was crumbling. I finally walked inside, closing the door with a soft click. My house felt colder, darker somehow, though the lights were on. I sat at the kitchen table, same chair I'd sat in for over 20 years, and placed the folded paper on the wood like it was something dangerous. In a way, it was. That slip of paper was proof. Proof that Tiana wasn't just lying to Marcus. She was lying to her child. And herself. I leaned back in the chair, letting my eyes drift toward the ceiling. "God," I whispered, "what am I supposed to do with this?" No thunder. No sign. Just silence. Silence heavy enough to make me realize the decision, whatever it would be, lay with me. Friday morning, Marcus called again.
He sounded tired this time.
Worn down. "Ma, can I come by after work?" "Of course, baby," I said, masking the quake in my voice. "You all right?" He hesitated long enough to tell me everything. "No," he finally admitted. "I'm not." That single sentence dropped right into my chest. Because hurt, when spoken out loud, always has a different kind of weight. He arrived around 6. He didn't even wait to sit down, just paced my living room like a man whose skin didn't fit right anymore. I think something's going on with Tiana, he said, hands on his hips, breathing hard. I asked if everything was okay. She snapped at me. Then she cried. Then she apologized. Then she locked herself in the bathroom. I swallowed quietly. Did she say why? She said she's stressed. That I'm suffocating her with my questions. He stopped pacing and looked at me with those wide, earnest eyes that had always been too gentle for a world this sharp. Ma, do you think she doesn't love me anymore? My heart cracked clean down the middle. Oh, baby, I whispered, standing and pulling him into my arms. He leaned into me like he had when he was a little boy with scraped knees and big feelings. I rubbed his back. Your wife is struggling. But that doesn't mean she doesn't love you. But inside I was screaming. Because love built on lies crumbles like dry bread. Marcus pulled back, wiping his face quickly, embarrassed. I'm sorry, Ma. I didn't mean to fall apart on you. You're not falling apart, I said softly. You're being honest. And there's nothing wrong with that. He nodded, exhaling shakily. I'm just trying to be a good husband. A good father. His voice broke on that last word. Father. I pressed my lips tightly together. Because that man was loving a child that wasn't his. And didn't know he was being robbed of the truth every single day. I keep thinking maybe she feels guilty, he said quietly. But guilty over what? The answer sat on my tongue like acid. I stepped closer and squeezed his arm. Marcus, sometimes women go through things they're not ready to talk about yet. He nodded, though confusion clouded his face. Maybe. He grabbed the gumbo leftovers from my fridge, kissed my cheek, and headed out. And as I watched him walk down my driveway, shoulders slumped, hope flickering like a weak flame, I knew something deep and certain. I couldn't let him live in the dark much longer. Tiana's week was almost halfway done. But the secret was leaking at every seam. And Friday night would prove that. Around 9:30, my phone buzzed. I looked down. It was Jordan. I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to tell you something. Urgent. My stomach twisted. I hesitated, then typed back. What is it? The bubbles flashed on and off for a long moment. Then the message appeared. Tiana told me she's thinking about leaving the city. Moving back with her cousin in Memphis.
Taking the baby.
My fingers went numb. Leaving? Running? Taking Avery and her lie with her? Another message popped up. She blocked me again after she told me. But I heard her say it. She's scared you know the truth. And she said she can't lose everything. My pulse hammered so loud I could hear it in my ears. Tiana was planning to run before the week was up. Before she had to tell Marcus. Before I could tell him. Before the truth could catch up. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor.
No.
No, I thought. No, God, this is too far. I moved through the house in a daze, pacing like a caged animal. Because this wasn't fear anymore. This was desperation. A destructive kind. And it could ruin my son. It could steal Avery from her rightful father. It could bury the truth forever. Jordan texted again. If she leaves, Marcus may never find out. I thought you should know. I didn't reply. I couldn't. I stood there, phone in hand, breathing fast and uneven. Then my home phone rang. I jumped, glanced at the caller ID.
Tiana.
I picked up slowly. Hello. Her voice spilled in, shaky and frantic. Mama Loretta, can you watch Avery tomorrow morning? I need to run some errands. Errands? My eyes narrowed. Tiana, I said carefully. What kind of errands? She inhaled sharply. A crack in her voice she tried to mask. Just errands.
Please. Can you do it?
I closed my eyes. This wasn't errands. This was preparation. This was escape. This was a woman on the edge, clinging to a lie she knew was days from collapsing. And suddenly, the choice I had been trying to postpone, the truth I had been holding back, rose up in me like a wave. A tidal wave. Tiana, I said softly, are you leaving Marcus? Silence. Not a breath. Not a whisper. Just a deep, dreadful pause.
Then,
who told you that? She whispered. Her voice wasn't angry. It was terrified. I pressed one hand to my forehead, steadying myself. Tiana, I said, you need to come over here.
Right now.
We need to talk. No, she said immediately. No, I can't. I just need a little more time, Mama Loretta. Please. Her voice cracked on that last word. Just don't tell Marcus yet, Tiana. But she hung up. The click echoed through my living room like a gunshot. I stared at the phone, gripping it tight, my heartbeat thrumming. Tiana wasn't going to tell him. Not in a week. Not ever. She was preparing to run. And my son, the boy I raised, the man whose heart still shined pure, was going to be left holding nothing but broken pieces and false fatherhood.
No.
I couldn't let that happen. Not to him. Not to Avery. Not to any of us. I stood up tall, shoulders squared, breath slow and deep.
It was time.
The discovery was only half done. The full betrayal? That was coming next. And I was about to walk straight into it. I thought that Sunday morning would give me peace. You know how quiet the world feels right before church crowds fill the streets? That soft stillness where you can hear the hum of your own heartbeat? That's what I expected when I stepped onto my porch with a mug of ginger tea and a blanket around my shoulders. But Atlanta air was different that morning.
Heavy. Charged.
Like the sky itself knew someone was lying in my house, and truth was pacing the hallway waiting to get out. I sat down on the porch swing, letting it creak beneath me as the neighborhood slowly woke up. A few birds, a distant lawnmower, children laughing 2 houses down. It should have felt normal, but nothing felt normal anymore. My phone buzzed against the wooden arm of the swing. When I looked and saw Jordan's name, my stomach knotted. I hesitated, thumb hovering, because part of me was tired. Tired of secrets, tired of watching my son walk blindfolded through a house full of mirrors. Tired of being the only one who knew. But I answered anyway. Ms. Loretta? His voice was low, cautious, waited. I found something else. A cold breeze brushed over me, though there was no wind. What is it, baby? He exhaled sharply, like he'd been pacing. It's about the timeline and the apartment. I sat up straight. What apartment? The one she had before she moved in with Marcus. My porch swing stopped moving. Jordan, I said slowly, I'm gonna need you to tell me that plain. She didn't move from her sister's house to Marcus's place like she says. His words came fast, clipped, like his jaw was clenched. She signed a 6-month lease with somebody.
A man.
And his breath shuddered. She put his last name down as the emergency contact. I closed my eyes. The lies were no longer threads, they were cables. Do you have his name? A pause. I do. And, Ms. Loretta, you're not gone like it. Tell me. His name is Travis. And he works with her. My heart tapped against my ribs, slow and hollow. I knew that name. Marcus had mentioned him in passing. Something like, Tiana said he just got promoted. She's proud of him. I remember nodding, thinking nothing of it. Why would I? Jordan, I said quietly. How sure are you? 100%. I saw the paperwork with my own eyes. His voice cracked a little. I ain't trying to be messy. I'm trying to protect my cousin. I rubbed my forehead, staring out into the quiet neighborhood. Across the street, Mrs. Holloway was watering her azaleas. The world looked calm, but inside me, everything was shifting. Jordan whispered, there's more. Go on. Travis still pays the light bill for that apartment. It's in his name. My breath stopped, not paused.
Stopped.
Because that wasn't a clue, that was confirmation. Confirmation that Tiana's life before Marcus wasn't what she pretended. Confirmation that somebody else had been holding her together financially, or emotionally, or both. And that somebody might still be around. Thank you for telling me, I said finally, forcing calm into my voice. We'll handle this carefully. Jordan didn't hang up right away. Ms. Loretta? Yes, baby. Please don't tell him yet. Not until you know it's safe. I knew what he meant. News like this could blow a man's whole world apart. I won't, I promised. When I hung up, the porch felt too small. The air too tight. I went inside, moving on instinct, straight to the kitchen. My hands shook so badly I had to grip the counter. Travis. That name kept repeating in my mind like a drum. I opened the drawer where I keep the baby's spare bottles. One of them was sitting right on top, blue cap, tiny footprint logo. I picked it up, and before I knew it, tears were sliding down my cheeks. Not because of the baby. Because of Marcus. My sweet, earnest, hard-working boy who loved too deeply, too openly, too wholeheartedly. I could already picture the look on his face if this truth hit him unprepared. He would break. A mother knows her child's breaking points. I wiped my face quickly when I heard footsteps upstairs. Light, hurried. Then Tiana's voice drifted down the steps. "Loretta? You up?" She appeared at the bottom of the stairs wearing a loose robe, hair wrapped, eyes puffy like she hadn't slept. She gave me a gentle smile, but something about it was off, like she was trying too hard. "Morning," I said, holding onto the counter to steady myself. "Baby sleeping?" "Yeah," she breathed out. Finally. She poured herself a glass of water and leaned against the sink. "Thank you again for yesterday. I don't know what I'd do without you." Her gratitude was soft, but too soft, too practiced. Like someone laying petals over a landmine. "Tiana," I said casually, keeping my tone light, "can I ask you something?" She glanced up quickly, too quickly.
Sure.
"You ever stay on Delmont Avenue? Near Piedmont Park?" Her whole body tightened. Barely, but I saw it. The small flinch in her shoulders. The tiny hitch in her breathing. The way her fingers froze around the glass. "No," she said, clearing her throat. "Why?"
A lie.
A clear, clean lie delivered with steady eyes, but her voice wobbled just enough for me to hear the fracture underneath. "Oh, just wondering," I said lightly, pretending not to notice. "Someone mentioned it yesterday." She smiled again, but her eyes darted away, landing on the floor. Another tiny crack. And cracks never stay small. Before she could say anything else, the baby started crying upstairs, sharp and sudden. "I'll go," she said quickly. Too quickly. She rushed up the stairs like she needed an escape. When she disappeared, I walked over to the dining table, sat down, and folded my hands. I needed to think. Not like a mother-in-law. Not like a woman hurt by betrayal. But like someone who had to decide whether to let the truth keep sinking or pull it into the light. I didn't get far. Because just minutes later, my doorbell rang. I frowned. I wasn't expecting anybody. When I opened the door, Jordan was standing there. Not with anger. Not with gossip. Not with nothing petty. But with proof. He held a manila envelope in his hand.
Thick.
Heavy. "Auntie," he said softly, "I've brought everything. Screenshots.
Dates.
Lease papers. Baby shower pictures from her other page. I thought you'd need it." I stared at the envelope. At the weight of it. At the truth sitting right there on my doorstep in the quiet Atlanta morning. I stepped aside and let him in, closing the door behind him. Because sometimes, the moment truth enters your home, you know life will never again be the same. Jordan laid that manila envelope on my dining table like he was setting down a newborn truth, fragile, trembling, demanding to be held just right. The morning sunlight streamed through my curtains in thin strips, touching the edges of the papers peeking out the top. And I swear, for a moment, I felt the whole house exhale. Like the walls themselves knew we were crossing a point we couldn't come back from. Jordan's hands were shaking a little. Not from fear, from the weight of loyalty. That boy was torn between protecting his cousin and honoring the truth he carried. I pulled out a chair and gestured for him to sit. He did, but his knee bounced so hard I could feel the vibrations through the floor. "You okay, baby?" I asked softly. He swallowed hard.
"No, ma'am."
"And I don't think you are either." I gave a small, tired smile. "We gone take this slow, all right? One piece at a time." I opened the envelope. The first thing I saw was a printed screenshot, a photo of Tiana, smiling in a bathroom mirror, swollen belly under a fitted dress. The caption read, 8 months along. Can't wait to meet our little prince. Blue heart. Not my son's name. Not Marcus tagged. The only tag was at Travis Jackson. I stared at that picture for a long moment, my fingertips tingling. Behind me, upstairs, I heard the soft, rhythmic sh-sh-show of Tiana soothing the baby. A sound that once warmed my heart, but now felt like a note struck in the wrong key. Next came documents. More screenshots. Timeline charts Jordan had printed out, one page at a time. Lease dates, apartment address, utility bills, tagged photos. And then a picture that made my stomach twist. Tiana, Travis, at what looked like a cookout. Her belly between them, her head resting on his shoulder. His hand spread wide across her stomach like a man claiming his child with pride. The date stamp put her at 5 months pregnant. That was 3 months before she met Marcus. My vision blurred for a second, and I blinked hard. I hadn't realized tears were collecting. Jordan reached across the table like he was ready to catch them if they fell. "Miss Loretta," he said gently, "I'm real sorry." I nodded, tightening my lips to keep them from trembling. "You did the right thing bringing this." Before either of us could say another word, soft footsteps creaked down the stairs. Jordan froze. I closed the envelope, slid it under a folded placemat, and exhaled slowly. Tiana appeared at the bottom of the staircase, baby on her hip, bottle in hand, face pale and worn. Her eyes widened when she saw Jordan.
Oh.
Hey, she said with forced brightness. "Didn't know you were coming by." Jordan's jaw ticked. He looked away. "I just needed to drop off something," he muttered. She nodded slowly, then turned to me. "Loretta, can we talk later? I've been meaning to ask you something." Her voice, timid, unsure, sounded like someone standing on a cliff's edge, looking down. "Course," I said softly. "We'll talk." She nodded again and carried the baby to the living room, humming under her breath. I watched her settle into my recliner, bouncing gently, protecting the child with a ferocity that made this whole situation even harder. "Miss Loretta?" Jordan whispered. "I don't want him to find out like some explosion. He deserves." "I don't know, Grace." He meant Marcus. I put my hand over his. "We gon' do this carefully. Nobody's rushing to burn nothing down." But inside, I felt the ground shifting. He stood, wiped his palms on his jeans. "Call me if you need anything. And I'm sorry you even got to deal with this." I walked him to the door. When he stepped out, he paused at the top of the porch steps. "She don't look like she wanna lie no more," he said quietly. "I think she's close to breaking." The door closed behind him with a soft click. And suddenly the house felt louder. The ticking clock. The baby's tiny hiccups. The quiet rustle of fabric as Tiana rocked him. When I returned to the living room, she glanced up at me with tired eyes. "Is Marcus coming by today?" she asked. "Maybe," I said carefully. She bit her lip, nodding to herself. "Okay." She kept rocking the baby, but her gaze drifted to the window like she was waiting for someone. Or something. Some moment when the truth would no longer stay inside her chest. "Tiana," I said softly, sitting across from her, "you've been quiet lately." She froze again, the same stillness from earlier when I'd asked about Delmont Avenue. "I'm just tired," she whispered. "Motherhood is a lot." I nodded slowly. "It is. And secrets make it heavier." Her head snapped up. Her eyes locked onto mine with so much raw fear that for a second, she looked like a child caught in a lie she couldn't untell. What you mean?" she whispered. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. "Tiana, life don't give us many chances to choose truth before truth chooses us." Her breath hitched. The baby shifted, gripping her robe with tiny fingers. She looked down. "I don't know what you think you know." "I'm not the one you need to convince," I interrupted gently. Silence. Heavy as stone. Behind us, a car slowed on the street. She flinched at the sound, like she thought it might be Marcus. Or Travis. Or somebody she owed the truth to. The baby let out a tiny sigh against her shoulder. "Loretta," she whispered, voice trembling, "I never meant to hurt anybody." "I know." And I thought, I really thought I could make it right. I know, baby. She pressed her forehead to the baby's back. I don't know how much longer I can keep pretending. I didn't push. I didn't pry. I let the moment breathe. Because sometimes the quiet is what breaks a lie open. Just then, a knock sounded at the door. Sharp.
Quick.
Tiana jolted like electricity ran through her body. My heart sank into my stomach. Because the way she reacted, that wasn't fear of a neighbor. That wasn't fear of a delivery man. That was the fear of a woman whose past had just found her front door. I stood, stepping toward the hallway. Behind me, Tiana's voice cracked into the air. Loretta, please don't open it. But the knocking came again. Urgent. Demanding. Truth had arrived. And it wasn't waiting anymore. The knock on the door sounded like a judge's gavel.
Hard.
Final. It echoed through the house, through the wood floors, the thin walls, the child's innocent cradle upstairs, until every breath I held felt heavy with what might come next. I stood halfway down the hallway, heart hammering low like a drum in a church choir. Behind me, Tiana rocked the baby as if trying to float away from the moment, as if rocking could push reality into the air like smoke. I took a deep breath. I'm going to see who it is. My voice was steady, but inside my body, something shook. She didn't say anything. She didn't move. She just held the baby tighter. I opened the door. And standing there, framed in the doorway by soft morning light, was a man.
Tall. Strong.
Clean-cut, like he'd stepped out of a suit of lies and half-truths. His eyes were sharp, fixed.
There was no softness in them.
No warmth. His face was familiar. I didn't have to guess who he was. Travis, I said quietly. He nodded. He didn't speak. I closed the door behind him slowly, letting the click echo in my bones. I turned, letting him in. When the door shut, the world inside felt small, tight, like the walls themselves pressed close so no secret could escape. Tiana stood up slowly, rocking stopped. Baby in arms. Her face pale.
Shocked.
Ashamed. All at once. I could smell it, sweat and fear and uncertainty. The scent of truth that's been holding its breath for too long. Travis didn't say anything. He just stood there in the hall, hands at his sides, eyes on the floor. Dead quiet. I didn't speak right away either. I studied him. Quietly.
Carefully.
You came, I said. He didn't move. Just nodded again. He shifted his gaze to the baby in Tiana's arms. His fingers twitched slightly. I wondered what he was thinking. Pride? Regret? Or just pain? Tiana raised her voice, soft but trembling. Why are you here, Travis? He looked at her then. Eyes dark, unfocused. To see my daughter.
His voice was thick.
Rough around the edges. Vulnerable. Your daughter? I repeated. Her eyes shot to mine. Then to him. Then to the baby. This baby is Marcus's, she said, panic bleeding into her tone. You know that. Travis swallowed hard. His jaw worked. He opened his mouth, but no words came. The baby cried, tiny, sharp, urgent. The sound split the room like a scream. Tiana rocked her, shushing until her words turned to soft whispers. I watched it all. The shaking hands, the jagged breaths, the unsteady footing, like I was watching a slow-motion slide into disaster. Finally, Travis spoke. His voice quiet, but not soft. I know what I did was wrong, he said slowly. But I love her too. And I can't hide from her truth just because someone else wants me to. Tiana shook her head violently. You don't get to say that. You don't get to. Tears sprung in her eyes. She swallowed. When I told you I was pregnant, you left. You said you weren't ready. So I made a choice. To be with Marcus. Because he offered a future. Her voice cracked. Because I was scared. But I didn't tell him the truth.
And I
don't know how to fix it. Fix it. The baby quieted for a moment, then whimpered again. Tiana hugged her close. I could see the rhythm of her chest go shallow and deep, like she was trying to hold herself together for the little life in her arms. Silence. Then I spoke.
Soft.
but like a crack in wood under pressure. Do you plan to leave now? My eyes locked onto Travis's like a mother bear guarding her cub. Or is this visit another way of running away from him? Travis's jaw clenched. He swallowed. I don't know, but I had to see, had to know, what she had become, what kind of world our daughter was being born into. My chest tightened. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting pity and anger and disappointment swirl together. When I opened them again, I looked at Tiana. Baby, I said gently, you owe him truth. And you owe your daughter a father she can respect, whether she's raised by the man you married or the man who helped make her. She shook her head again, tears streaming.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. I swallowed hard. Sorry doesn't change what happened, but honesty might save what's left. Travis exhaled, jaw relaxing fractionally. I'm not asking you to choose sides, he said quietly. I just want to know if my daughter can know me, if she can know what part of her is him. The baby whimpered again. I moved forward, gently slipping into the space between them. I put one hand on Tiana's shoulder, the other on the baby's head. She will, I said. But it starts with you telling Marcus. Tiana looked at me like I was the ground beneath her. Slowly, so slowly it felt like the world waited, she nodded. Her tears fell, not fast but steady, like rain leaking through a crack. Travis exhaled, closing his eyes. I could feel his weight shift. Less heavy, but not free. He nodded to me. Thank you. I won't go on yet, because part of me knows, once this truth surfaces, nothing will ever be the same for all of us. But for now, the lies have begun to lift. The web is snapping, and the reckoning has stepped through the door. The hours that followed felt like the longest day of my life. Not because of shouting, not because of drama, but because of waiting. Waiting for the truth to settle. Waiting for the tears to fall. Waiting for Marcus to walk through my door. The one moment I had dreaded since the first clue fell into my hands. After Travis left, quiet, heavy, carrying more guilt than confidence, Tiana stayed in my living room, rocking the baby like she was trying to steady her own heartbeat. Her face looked hollowed out, as if she'd aged 5 years in one morning. The baby's soft breaths pressed against her chest, anchoring her to something she wasn't sure she deserved. I watched her in silence. I didn't judge, didn't scold,
Didn't shame.
I just watched a young woman break open. Sometimes, the best thing you can do for someone is give them space to fall apart safely. After a while, she whispered, I'm ready to tell him. Her voice was small, not fragile, but humbled. A woman standing on the edge of consequence. I nodded. I'll be right here. Around 3 p.m., I heard the familiar rumble of Marcus's car pulling into the driveway. My chest tightened. Tiana stood immediately, clutching the baby. Loretta, I think I need to do this alone. I touched her hand gently. You won't be alone. I'll be here if you need me, but the words gotta come from you. She nodded, trembling. The front door opened. Mama?
T?
Baby girl? Marcus called, cheerful, unaware, wearing that easy smile that made people trust him instantly. When he stepped into the living room and saw her face, his smile faded. What's wrong? He asked, brow furrowing. Is the baby okay? She's fine, Tiana whispered. It's me. I need to talk to you. Marcus looked between us, his eyes landing on my face. Mama? What's going on? I swallowed. Sit down, son.
He did.
And then the world seemed to hold its breath. Tiana tried to speak, twice, but the words tangled themselves around her tongue. She looked down at their daughter, then up at Marcus, and finally drew in a long, shuddering breath. Marcus, I haven't been honest with you. His jaw tensed. About what? Tears slid down her cheeks. About her. His body stilled, then stiffened. What you mean about her? She closed her eyes like the truth was acid burning through her throat. She's not yours biologically. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus blinked once.
Twice.
3 times. Like his mind refused to take in the words. He shook his head slowly. Tiana stopped playing. That's not funny. She broke. I'm so sorry. I didn't plan for it to go this far. I thought you'd leave me if you knew. I told myself she needed stability. I told myself I'd tell you when the time was right. But the time never felt right. And then, I was scared. I was ashamed. I didn't want to lose you. Marcus stared at her, breathing hard.
So you lied to me.
All this time. You lied. She tried to reach for him, but he flinched like her touch was a flame. I watched his face, watched the heartbreak crack him open, watched realization pour into his eyes until they shimmered with betrayal. How long you been lying to me? His voice had a tremor, but not the angry kind, the wounded kind. Since before she was born. Her voice broke into pieces. Marcus,
I'm so sorry.
He looked at the baby, the child he'd held, rocked, fed at 3 a.m. The child he'd promised to protect. The child he'd already whispered dreams to. He whispered, so she ain't mine. Tiana cried harder. You're the only father she knows. That ain't what I asked. She's not biologically yours, she admitted again, voice barely audible. Marcus covered his face with both hands and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. His shoulders shook. I moved toward him, resting a hand on his back like I used to when he was 12 and heartbroken over something small. Only this time the ache was grown man deep. Mama, he whispered through his fingers. Why me? Why would she do this to me? I don't have answers for that, baby. But I'm right here. He sat up slowly, wiping at his eyes with angry motions. Who's the father? Tiana swallowed. Travis. Marcus's whole body hardened, like his bones turned to metal. The room pulsed with the sound of his breathing. You've been lying to me, he said, voice low, quiet, dangerously calm. You let me love a child that wasn't mine, and you never even gave me the choice. Tiana fell to her knees. Marcus, please, I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't know how to fix it. You fix it with truth, he said sharply. The baby started crying at the raised voices, and Tiana clutched her tightly, rocking her with trembling hands. Marcus stood up, pacing, hands gripping his head. I don't even know what to feel. You don't have to decide today, I said, stepping in gently. He stopped pacing and looked at me, eyes red and lost. Mama, what do I do? I put both hands on his cheeks, the same cheeks I used to kiss when he was small. You take time. You breathe. You feel what you feel. And then you choose the road that brings you peace. He closed his eyes and leaned his forehead against mine. I held him like the world was falling apart, because in that moment it was. Finally, he stepped back. I need space, he said quietly. Tiana nodded, shaking. Okay. I'm not walking out on her, he added, nodding at the baby. But I need to breathe. I need to think. I need to understand who I am in all this. He walked toward the door, then paused. Mom, keep them here tonight? I nodded. He left with slow steps, the kind of steps a man takes when his whole future has tilted off its axis. The door closed behind him. The house fell silent except for the soft, tired cries of a newborn and the quiet sobs of a woman who had finally told the truth. I knelt beside Tiana, and for the first time since it all began, she didn't flinch from me. She leaned into me and cried like a daughter. And I held her, because even broken people need a safe place to fall.
The truth was out now.
The wound was open. And healing, the long, painful, necessary healing, could finally begin. Marcus didn't come home that night. He didn't come home the next day either. And even though my heart ached for my son, I knew space was the only thing that could keep the situation from shattering completely. Inside the house, Tiana moved like a woman trying to stitch herself back together with shaking fingers. Every diaper she changed, every bottle she warmed, every soft lullaby she hummed, her actions were quieter now, humbler. She cried often, sometimes silently, sometimes into the baby's hair, sometimes into my shoulder, and I let her. Because some wounds don't heal from judgment, they heal from truth, accountability, and time. On the third evening, we finally heard the knock.
Soft.
hesitant, almost shy. I opened the door to find Marcus standing there, eyes tired, beard unshaved, wearing the same clothes he left in. He had the look of a man who'd been wrestling with himself and losing. "Mama, is she awake?" he asked quietly. "Yeah," I whispered. "She's in the nursery with Tiana." He nodded and walked past me, every step careful, like his heart might crack open again if he moved too fast.
Tiana stood when he entered.
Their eyes met, hers swollen from crying, his guarded but searching. He approached her slowly. "May I?" he whispered, nodding toward the baby. Tiana stood when he entered. Their eyes met, hers swollen from crying, his guarded but searching. He approached her slowly. "May I?" he whispered, nodding toward the baby. Tiana placed their daughter, his daughter in every way that mattered, gently into his arms. Marcus cradled her, staring into her tiny face, and something inside him broke open again, but softer this time. He didn't cry with anger. He cried with love. "This little girl," he whispered. "I don't care what blood says. I love her, and she deserves a father who won't run at the first storm." Tiana's breath caught. "Marcus, I swear I will spend the rest of my life fixing what I broke." He nodded, still staring at the baby. "I'm not making promises today," he said. "Not about us. Not yet." She nodded through tears. "I understand. But her?" He kissed the baby's forehead. "She's mine.
And she always will be."
Tiana covered her mouth and sobbed. Relief, guilt, gratitude all tangled together. And me? I leaned against the doorframe, wiping my eyes. Sometimes healing doesn't look like perfection. Sometimes it just looks like two broken people choosing to rebuild slowly, brick by honest brick. Marcus looked up at Tiana. "I'm willing to go to counseling," he said. "But only if you're prepared to tell the truth every time we walk into that room." "I am," she whispered. "I am, and I'm sorry, Marcus."
"For all of it."
He nodded. "Not with forgiveness. Not yet. But with willingness. And sometimes, willingness is the seed forgiveness grows from." Weeks passed. Then months. Counseling wasn't easy, I know, because sometimes they came home quiet, drained, holding hands but barely speaking. Other times, they came home lighter, like bricks were being lifted from their shoulders one truth at a time. Trust didn't return in a day. But commitment did. And slowly, beautifully, broken pieces became building blocks. One night, after I tucked the baby into her crib, Marcus sat beside me at the kitchen table and sighed. "You know, Mama, I don't know what the future looks like, but I'm learning how to breathe again." I squeezed his hand. "That's all any of us can do." He smiled softly, eyes tired but hopeful. "Mama, thank you for holding both of us together when everything fell apart." I shook my head, heart full. "Baby, y'all did the hard part. I just kept the lights on." He laughed, a sound I hadn't heard from him in months. And right then I knew. Storms don't destroy every home. Some storms just wash away the lies and show the foundation beneath. A foundation built on love, truth, and the courage to start again. Months later, they renewed their vows.
Small ceremony. No guests. Just me, the baby, and God.
And when Marcus slid the ring back onto Tiana's finger, he whispered, "I forgive you. Not because I forgot, but because I've seen your healing." She cried. He cried. I cried. And our little family, battered, bruised, but still standing, took a new first step. Together. You know, life will throw curveballs so sharp they can cut you open. Betrayal hurts. Broken trust hurts. But healing is a choice you make every morning. A choice to stay. A choice to rebuild. A choice to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. And sometimes, peace comes from holding on to the people who are willing to fight for the better version of themselves. That's what my son and his wife did. And that's why their story ain't one of destruction, but one of resurrection. If you felt this story deep in your spirit, if it made you think, reflect, or hold your chest a little, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Voice of Mrs Addison, where real stories meet real emotion And every tale reminds you that healing is possible. Your support keeps these stories alive. Until next time, this is Mrs. Addison signing out.